Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Babel Street's Strategic Intelligence series, where we will discuss the best ways to leverage public and commercial data through our platforms to support decision advantage in a contested logistics arena. Today, we're actually going to talk about what we mean by strategic signals, and especially the word signals in that phrase. The word signals in intelligence tradecraft carries a tremendous meaning, and I want to reframe it today from that which the word signals combined with intelligence typically means. Signals are frequently cast in our line of work as having a connotation of being highly technical, highly secretive, perhaps even expressly surveillance style data. And that's really a tragedy because the word signals can mean so much more. For us at Babel Street, they really mean context signals. How do you know that something significant has happened so that you can contemplate calling in public and commercial technical signals data to give you even more details about the information that you seek? So, really, context signals is about framing the right question. And usually it comes from mastery of the who and the what and the why of the situations that matter to you. And if you can figure out the who, the what, and the why well enough to be able to cast a net for the kinds of technical signals that can expressly tell you where and when that something you care about is happening, then you have the ability to really scale out your use of technical signals. Now, also, what are technical signals from public and commercial data? Well, they're quite a lot, more and more every day, because there's incredible appetite for this kind of technical signals data, and providers of public and commercial data are constantly making this kind of product available. We do too. So let's take, for example, transponder data. Let's take AIS transponders for ships or flight transponders for commercial aircraft. That these techniques for monitoring the presence of vessels at a moment in time are there largely for safety, and they're available commercially and in some cases publicly, so that members of an ecosystem can be aware of each other's presence. It's also wonderful information if, for example, you want to track anomalies in the presentation of healthy data that could indicate perhaps nefarious or illicit activity. Someone might turn off a transponder, for example, if they don't want to be tracked for a period in time, or they're going to do something that they want to be harder to see through public and commercial means. And that can be technical signals use on their own, and they can be very powerful. But let's imagine reframing AIS data in the context of a context signal. Let's say, for example, that you decide that you really need to know where car carriers, vessels, very large vessels that carry cars around the world, that are chartering their services to BYD, a Chinese EV manufacturer, for exports globally, that you need to know where those vessels are going to put into port, because that will indicate the beachheads for where BYD EV manufacturing is going to proliferate. And perhaps that supply chain is one that you need to understand. AIS data can tell you that. It can tell you that very easily, and it tells a very rich story with an even easier detection schema. All you need to know is where the vessel's put in. It's efficient. It's efficient and it's powerful to assign your technical signals the role of answering a question that context has allowed you to frame. Well, the more you follow that logic farther and farther up the value chain of the so what of context, you find yourself needing to have context for context signals, for more context signals, before you can use technical signals to any advantage. Now, let's talk about what a context signal would be by comparison. Perhaps it's an announcement that two different companies that are part of a European shipping ecosystem are going to merge, and therefore that a certain set of vessels that were under one sanctions regime are going to be insured by the insurance carrier of another. That context signal is potentially going to tell you that there's a new set of uh, adjacencies where vessels and insurance and sanctions regimes are going to shift around. And you don't need technical signals yet. You may decide that there's a set of vessels that you then want to monitor with technical signals, but there's a flash that happens at the so what layer because something contextual happens in the world. Maybe it's a merger and acquisitions in this case, maybe it's an announcement in another case, perhaps it's the release of a policy, perhaps it's a release of a budget. Perhaps it's a happening on the stock market. Perhaps it's a violent event. Uh, but in many cases, it is a shift in intent by one party or another that is going to herald a follow through in the real world that qualifies a context signal. So we really find ourselves going all the way up to the top of the strategic decision calculus of our customers to understand what kinds of decisions they're going to need to make, and really abstracting out from there what kinds of questions will lead to next questions and will lead to next questions that will lead to concrete observables. And plenty of the data that we decide to collect is answers to context questions rather than answers to technical signals level questions. And that's because the majority of intelligence is not that last mile finishing. It's not the what next or the where and the when. That's finishing. It's beautiful, but it's finishing. It's everything that happens before that. So if you really want to avoid strategic surprise, which is the enemy of decision making, then you have to frame your context questions and your context signals all the way up to the decisions you need to make and all the way down to the different things that could possibly influence your decisions. And that's what we mean by context signals. And when we talk about strategic signal series, really at Babel Street, we master the way that our content can support decisions up and down the spectrum and across the last mile. And we look forward to helping you with your decisions. And thank you very much for your time. I look forward to the next one.